Every piece of scrap wood has a story, and sometimes the right mix of patience and creativity can turn that forgotten pile into something beautiful. This project started exactly like that: a few uneven planks, a dusty old slab with cracks and rough edges, and the idea of transforming it all into a one-of-a-kind epoxy resin table. Not just another trendy piece of furniture, but a custom build that carries its scars with pride. I started by gathering every leftover board I could find: oak, pine, even some old walnut offcuts. None of them matched, but that was the point. I wasn't chasing perfection. I wanted contrast. I laid them out on the floor like puzzle pieces, flipping, trimming, and rearranging until they looked balanced. The rule is simple: the grain direction matters more than the color. Once I found the right combination, I traced the rough shape of the tabletop and marked my cuts. Using a circular saw, I trimmed each edge straight and square. The goal was to create two clean halves with a narrow gap down the middle, the channel where the resin would flow. To prepare for the pour, I built a mold using melamine boards, smooth surface, perfectly flat, and sealed tight with silicone along every seam. That's one of those small details that separates a clean pour from a disaster. Resin doesn't forgive leaks. Next came the sanding 80 grit to start, enough to remove the old finish and grime. I brushed off the dust and sealed the wood with a thin coat of clear epoxy. That step locks out air and prevents bubbles from rising when the main pour happens. I mixed my resin slowly: 2 parts epoxy, 1 part hardener, stirring for 5 minutes straight, scraping the sides and bottom to avoid streaks. The trick is patience. Mix too fast and you trap air. Mix too little and the cure fails. This time I went with a deep ocean blue pigment, subtle, not neon, just enough to highlight the void between the boards. As I poured, the color spread like liquid glass, settling into the cracks and knots. Watching resin flow is almost meditative. It fills every imperfection, like it knows exactly where to go. I used a heat gun to remove surface bubbles and let it cure for 24 hours under a dust cover. The next day, I released the slab from the mold, one of the most satisfying moments in any epoxy project. The surface was dull and uneven at first, but that's where the magic of sanding and polishing comes in. I started at 80 grit, then 120, 220, 400, all the way to 1000. By the time I hit 2000 grit, the resin was clear enough to reflect light like water. I wiped it down with mineral oil and just stood there for a second, watching how the colors danced with the grain. For the legs, I kept it simple: black powder-coated steel, modern and minimal. The contrast between the raw, organic top and industrial legs gave it balance. I attached them using threaded inserts. No shortcuts, because stability matters as much as style. Then I flipped it upright, and the table finally stood on its own. The mix of wood species, the streak of blue resin, the uneven edges, everything about it felt alive. What I love about resin work is that it celebrates imperfection. Cracks, knots, splits, things we usually hide, suddenly become the focal point. The resin doesn't just fill the gaps. It highlights them, like scars that tell a story. Every table you make this way is unrepeatable. Even if you try to copy it, the flow, the patterns, the small details, they'll always come out unique. The total cost? Around $120, most of it in resin and hardware. The rest was time, the kind of slow, deliberate effort that makes you respect the process. Because epoxy is not about pouring. It's about patience. It's about waiting for something messy to transform into something remarkable. When I finally placed it in the room, the sunlight hit it just right, the blue river glowing between old wooden banks. You could still see every grain, every imperfection preserved beneath the surface, like memories frozen in glass. That's when it hit me. I hadn't just built a table. I had captured a story in resin. So if you've got scrap wood lying around, don't throw it away. Let it live again. Give it new form, new purpose. Because sometimes the most beautiful builds aren't born from perfect materials. They reborn from what everyone else left behind.